Hello everybody, welcome back to the workbench. Today we have a box on my table, and seeing how this box is covered in yellow tape, I'm guessing this one is from China. I actually know this one's from China because I already know what's on the inside. You don't know what's on the inside, so let's open this up and get into it. And today I'm going to be using a handy dandy screwdriver. And on the inside we have some foam padding in the shape of a vector kit. It's weird. All right. I like how they're using that as a way to fill space. That's kind of smart. Good job for that one, Worker. I'll give it to you. We have worker boxes. Lots of them. And there's that lovely Chinese tape smell. So we have 4 boxes. And if you've been noticing a trend lately with some of maybe your favorite YouTubers, well, they've been getting Dominators, and you know what? I am no different. And mine is in clear, which I really like. I've seen the blue one and I'm not really into it. It's a bit too blue for my taste, but the clear one looks pretty awesome right off the bat. So let me get these other boxes open. So I took everything out of the boxes to get a better understanding of what you get with your Dominator, and we're gonna go over the shell first. And I don't own a swordfish, so I can't really compare the two, but the Dominator is, in my opinion, a very good looking blaster. I think it looks really great, and it's also pretty darn comfy. Now, the grip has a little bit of room at the bottom for me and my big hands, which is nice. It feels good. The area that goes into the webbing has a nice transition, so there's no discomfort here. I will say the front is gonna need something. I know with the mag in, and I guess I should put that in now. With the mag in, you can hold it like that, but I want something that's gonna make it comfier for when I'm not holding it like that. But yeah, so it's gonna need like a little front grip of some sort. The shell is not symmetrical, which I know is gonna get to some people, but I mean, you need motor space on one side, so I don't know what you're expecting. The tack rail is very long, so you can get some nice accessories up there. And I've gotten some worker stuff, tack rail stuff, where it's been warped, it's been, you know, weird and all that stuff. This is looking pretty straight with no problems there. But what about the insides? Because I've watched Jangular's, Out of Darts, Naptown Nerfs, and Beret's videos going over this, so I know some of the complaints that they have brought up, and one of them is the rev trigger and the main trigger in this. Starting with the rev trigger, I think it was Out of Darts' complaint was you have to push this thing in There it is. You have to push this thing really far in order for it to activate, and he is not joking. It's really far in there, and I'm definitely gonna have to add something to the back of the rev trigger so you don't have to like line it up with the shell, because that's just too far of a rev trigger pull and I do not like it. It also is a bit crunchy with the main trigger safety, so that's gonna need some lubrication or just take out that safety altogether, because I mean, Worker has put a little area in for the micro switch, which is nice. I think that's a great thing for them to do, but that's just too far. Now, the main trigger, one of the complaints was that it is squeaky and crunchy. Mine isn't so much squeaky unless I do it real slow, but it is a not smooth trigger pull. That is a disgusting trigger pull in my opinion. There is no smoothness to it. It has this weird kind of, you can just feel everything rubbing together. It's real gross and I do not like it. So this is gonna just be re-lubricated, redone. It needs some work in here to be comfortable. The mag release though, nothing wrong with that. Along with your Dominator, you do get some side panels, which is a cool little addition. They just snap into the inside of the mag well, so you can use mags that aren't the 40 round magazine. I think that's a great little addition to this blaster. You know, because not everyone wants to just go out and buy a bunch of 40 round magazines, because there are some concerns I have with this that I'll talk about in a little bit. So if you want to use regular mags, that's a cool addition. Glad they included that. But overall, this shell is really, really comfy. I think it looks great, even with the angle at the front. Usually I'm not a big fan of the weird back angles on the front of guns and blasters in general, but I think this thing looks great, it's very comfortable, and I think Worker did a pretty good job with it. There's really not much else to talk about it that has not been said. It's a nice big shell for 3 flywheel cages. Let's talk about this that came with the kit. This has a pretty important piece if you decide to use the 40-round magazine, and it's this flywheel cage right here. This is a Worker Gen 3 one that has a wider opening on it to fit the 40-round magazine stacked feeding. If you use a normal cage, the opening is smaller and your darts may not fit into this as well, causing jams. So this just has a wider opening so that the stacked darts can go from side to side into the blaster and feed just fine. So if you're going to be using your 40-round magazine, this is going to be pretty important, I think, until some other company like Containment Crew or OFP come up with a cage that has the wider opening on it. Inside this box, you also get a barrel. Just fits right there. And we get some Worker motors and some metal Worker flywheels. Now the motors, I'm just gonna throw away right off the bat. These are the old, pretty weak Worker motors. Not a lot of hold, and I don't understand why Worker puts the PCBs on top. I just don't. They're not really necessary. And with the amount of motors that I have, there's really no need for me to use those. I'm thinking about using Krakens, you know, in this build, something like that. The wheels I will be keeping because while I may not be using them for the Dominator, I think it's nice to have a pair of metal wheels in case I ever want to get that nice tink, tink, tink sound out of a blaster. So I'll keep those around. Let's talk about some concerns I have with this blaster, because this is not only a first impressions of the Dominator, but I do have a list of concerns with the entire kit that I'd like to go over and get your opinions on. Maybe you can tell me some of your concerns with the kit from what you've seen, but mainly this is a first impressions and concerns video. So I have a list over here of 4 to 5 concerns going over this. The first one, and I'm sure it's one that many of you have thought about when you saw this kit, it is battery space. This build does not have a suitable LiPo battery spot if you're going to be using 3 cages. Even with the extended battery door, which adds a little bit of space, like it adds a little bit, this just doesn't feel like it has the right battery space for 3 flywheel cages. Maybe you can get away if you're using 2, but for 3, I don't think this is going to be big enough. And Jangular went out and bought a Foam Technician stock. I did too for this because it adds a little bit of extra space, and I'll have the sizes down here because I did measure them. This just, in my opinion, is not going to cut it. Even if you can find a LiPo with the right specs, I don't think it's going to be big enough in terms of milliamp hour for you to get like a nice full day's worth out of your blaster, especially for HVZ. Because 3 flywheel cages is going to be super duper hungry, and yeah. Also, on the inside of this, there's this ledge right here, which don't really know why Worker did that, but it takes up some battery space room. I don't think you can cut it. Maybe it's for the full auto kit, but this ledge is really killing me over here because I want extra room. If the ledge was gone, this would be much better. But yeah, there's some posts and stuff on the inside underneath this ledge. So, with, yeah, this just, you're gonna need an extra stock. I might actually get a Worker stock and make a LiPo holder in the back of that with some polycarb on the side. You would think Worker would think about this with 3 flywheel cages, but it is one of my big concerns is like, Worker, what are you doing? So yeah, that's concern number 1, is that you're just not gonna have enough space. And even if you do find a LiPo that goes in here, I don't think it's gonna be big enough to power you throughout the day. And who wants to carry around multiple LiPos? I sure don't. The second one has to do with the 3 flywheel cages, and it is expense. I don't know if you guys have ever added up how much 3 metal flywheel cages plus motors plus wheels is, but it can get rather pricey. If you're gonna be using OFP cages, definitely gonna drop the price, but I really like metal cages. They're what I'm gonna be, they're what I want to use for every project. And I think metal will just look so much better in here, especially if you have the first one being metal. Another silver one in front of that will be really good. If you get 3 cages, it's gonna be pricey. 2 cages still, if you get a Serenity cage, that's, you know, $35 right there, plus this, whatever, and then the motors and the wheels, it can add up quite quick. So make sure you have the budget for the build that you wanna make in this, because it's gonna get a little pricey and my wallet's not gonna like it very much. So the third thing ties back into the battery tray, in that, in my mind, the better build is gonna be a 3S one, you know, something like Krakens, overvolted Fang revamps. The first flywheel cage taking kind of the brunt of the force, the RPM drops a little bit. The second one makes back up for that RPM drop. And then the third one is supposed to be the high RPM to really fling the dart out. You want a nice ramping approach. That at least is what I was thinking in my mind, Kraken, Fang revamps. And if you played around with 3S batteries, they tend to be bigger than 2S batteries. So if you want a 3S battery build in this, again, this is just not gonna be big enough. Fang revamps do like 50 amps, is what Michelle told me with the safety margin in mind. So 100 amps just from the last, you know, the last set by itself. So yeah, again, battery tray just doesn't feel big enough. Maybe you could expand it somehow, but you're gonna be cutting into the shell. You wanna do as little cutting into the shell as possible because, well, it's see-through. So yeah, it's just, again, I don't know why Worker didn't make it this bigger. Maybe because people would complain about how big the battery space is, but I think they could have done it. Yeah, whatever. The fourth thing is basically just the electronics in themselves. Number one, I don't like auto kits that use this kind of toy geared mechanism. I've seen too many of them get their gears stripped because the gears are plastic. And I do have a metal version of this. It's like a blue box with metal gears except for the one that's on the motor, so that's still a bit weird. But I just don't trust a full auto kit to stay around for a while. They make me nervous that it's gonna break. So I don't like that, and I'll probably be keeping the semi-auto even later down the road if we come out with something better. Semi-auto keeps me at bay when it comes to shooting a ton of darts, so I think I'm just gonna keep it in the strife mode. When it comes to the switches, these are 5 amp, and so while these pieces do have a MOSFET on the back, I took a picture of it so if someone wants to look into the data for it, they can. While there are MOSFETs on the back, I still like having 21 amp switches, even with MOSFETs, just for the click. These are 5 amp. I don't like 5 amp. I'm gonna be upgrading these to 10 amp, just because why not add an extra 5 amps to your small switches. But while these do have a MOSFET on them, I'm still a bit wary of you know, how they're gonna hold up to 3 flywheel cages or even 2 flywheel cages. I know one of these only controls the speed of the pusher motor, so I guess if one fries out, you still have another one. I don't know. I don't know. It concerns me a little bit, but at least there are MOSFETs on here. I don't know how well they work, but at least there are MOSFETs, so good job, Worker, on that aspect, I guess. I don't know. The last thing to talk about is, of course, the 40-round magazine. There are some concerns that I have with it, but first of all, this thing is really cool. Like, I think it's awesome. Worker has figured out a way to do a stacked mag. We've been talking about this for such a long time in the Nerf modding community. So for them to get one out like it's real is very, very cool. It is thicker than what you're used to with normal mags, and I know there's going to be comments going, hey, that's what she said. But it's 1 1/3 inch wide, and yeah, it is a bit beefy. So, but it is cool. It's very cool. The follower is very smooth. It feels good. But my main concerns come from normal use. As Out of Darts has shown in a video he did, it does not like worn darts. It jams up quite a bit with worn darts. So if you're gonna be taking this to like your local club, you're gonna have to bring your own new darts to use it because it will not like, you know, your community dart bin, which is a shame. It'd be cool if, I mean, I get why it doesn't work, but it'd be cool if it could work, you know, whatever. My biggest concerns with this are just normal gameplay. How well will it hold up to being tossed to the side a bunch, or even just getting a little bit of dirt on the inside? Because, I mean, there is a bit of room around the sides, but dirt can really mess with your mag. if you've ever gotten dirt inside of one of your 18 rounders, it can just completely ruin them. Now there are ways to clean out your mags as per Foam Data Service and Captain Xavier. They've done videos on that, but still I would not want to have to buy all new ones of these after I've already bought them, because these are not the cheapest of the bunch. So yeah, but the future of this looks great, as Luke was talking about. Having 4 of these and having 160 darts is pretty darn cool to think about, especially since the sides of them are smooth, so these will stack nicely along next to each other. And as someone who runs as a heavy for HVZ, I mean, my email is designated heavy, this is pretty cool. I would love to have about 8 of these on myself and not have to worry about having a ton of 18-round magazines. Like, I usually carry 10 plus, so you could really cut that down just by a few of these, which is really cool to think about. That does mean you'd have to run the Dominator, but if you get this nicely tuned up, I don't think that would be a problem, especially ergonomically. It is a very comfortable blaster. It looks cool, and yeah, there's a lot of versatility to it. But yeah, so those are my main concerns with everything. I'm gonna have to put this together sometime soon. I have to buy new wires, but speaking of putting it together, I should really probably go over this quickly. The instructions are kind of weird. If you get a Dominator, do not be surprised if you're like, what? When you're reading this, like for example, there are exposed wire connections on top of metal cages? What? And then over here where they talk about these, they include pictures of the little screw down terminal connectors, but they're soldering wires to the back of it. I don't understand. Like right here, this terminal screw down area isn't even being used. They just directly soldered the wires in. So what was the point of putting? Anyways, there's some weird stuff going on in the instructions. I might take this diagram and make one of my little diagrams out of it, because it is very, very small. So if you don't have too good of eyes, that's gonna be a bit hard to see. But yeah, gonna have to get this all together. But for now, I'd like to thank my $10 tier Patreon reward members, who include Jorge Verdeen, Taybeck, Scott Tomlin, Biggs Inzy, and Foam Blast. A big thank you to them. If you want to be a Patreon supporter and support this channel outside of just watching some YouTube ads, because YouTube ads, oh gosh, the amount of TikTok ads I've been seeing now. So if you want to support this channel in another way, I'll have a link in the description to my Patreon. But in the comment section, I'd like to see what you have planned in case you get a Dominator, what your concerns are, what you're looking forward to, what do you like, what do you hate, all that good stuff. Let's get a discussion going down below. But for now, hope you enjoyed this video. And as always, have a great day wherever you are.